free from the, thank you. Free from the constriction and contraction caused by held belief systems and thought patterns. Free from the automatic reactivity caused by learned and held emotional patterns. And free from the isolation and suffering caused by distorted perceptions. I will always go for refuge to a live, vibrant, radiant, spacious awareness until awareness is ongoing, like the flow of a river. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the presence of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, of any lineage or no lineage, and or any time or beyond time, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all beings. As long as space remains, as long as beings remain, may I manifest in such a way to ease and dispel the miseries in the universe. There we are. Is there anybody here who has never had a Chenrezig, either from Lama Lena or from me teaching or sharing? Okay, no first timers. What comes to mind is perhaps to be somewhat traditional here. But what's been on my mind a lot is how we engage in whatever yidam or whatever. Vicente, we do not have a Spanish speaker in here, I don't think. Let me look around. Anybody feel like they could give a go at translating into Spanish? I don't think. No translación para español ahora, Vicente. Sorry, but you are welcome to stay. I've been wondering how all of us engage Chenrezig in our everyday life. Because it is lovely to spend this time together and basically perhaps let our hearts join in a bigger space than we normally are in. But what do we do ourselves? I'm thinking when it feels like our world is in so much turmoil and there's so much anger, and that anger is acted out, and we can see suffering everywhere. And we suffer because of the suffering everywhere, or we spend a whole lot of energy trying to push that suffering away. It will sometimes to us feel overwhelming. And sometimes our reaction to it will be anger. And the anger can get bigger and bigger and bigger. And our need to act it out can get very big also. So what do we do? What use is this idea of some being from long, long ago who seemed to have a big heart? So it isn't so much for me a being long, long ago that I have interest in or connection with. It's exactly that. Thank you, Victoria. All I could see was the light. It is the light, if you will, of aliveness, awareness. No matter how it gets skewed, twisted, and acted out in ways that are harmful to many of us. And in this tradition, all of this arises from our ignorance, our thinking that we're separate from everything else. And that creates a me and an everything out there. So how do we allow ourselves to be present fully with all the suffering? It's always been there. It's the definition of samsara, isn't it? But in this moment, what are we experiencing? I had a talk with someone a lot of you know I have great respect for, Ken MacLeod, who's a teacher and a writer and a all around pretty good guy. And he told me his story about his brother, who was really, really upset about the suffering in Gaza and really angry about it and really suffering with it. And I want to get this right because there's something important in what Ken MacLeod was saying. And he asked his brother, "Are you suffering in this moment? What are you suffering?" And his brother said something like, "Well, I just can't stand that people are starving. I can't stand the cruelty of how people are treating each other." And Ken MacLeod went back to him, and I hope I'm getting this correct, and said, "Yes. Are you suffering in this minute from starvation? Are you suffering in some way?" And he pointed at something I think that's really important. We can be riled up by the news. That's what sells newspapers, yes. And we can forget that for all the negative things that may be happening in the world, there are countless beings in this moment who have kindness, generosity, open-heartedness. If we shut our hearts down in that angry place of perceiving suffering, we miss all the fullness of life. And what I heard Ken MacLeod say, and it really put me off for a minute, longer than a minute, is that the suffering we do when we perceive others suffering is of no use whatsoever, other than it might remind us that we're not the only beings in the world, and that it might have us appreciate what we do have. That was my addition, not his. And I said, well, then what do you do? And he said, you do whatever arises to do. If we get overwhelmed by the suffering, it basically means, this is me, not him, that we can't handle it. This little I, cannot handle all the suffering in the world. I can't stand that people get murdered. I can't stand that people die unnecessary. I particularly can't stand that children are brought up with hunger, starvation, pain. I can't stand it. I am not suffering hunger, pain, starvation at this moment. So to be open-hearted, truly open-hearted, must have something to do with being present with what is. I'm not great at words with this, so maybe we'll just do some practice that comes to mind here. If we're grabbing onto Chenrezig to get rid of our own suffering, well, okay. That's not wrong. But what happens when we gently try to open to everything? We don't get caught in doom scrolling. I have a friend that's totally caught in doom scrolling. She's almost to the point where she can't go out of the house. You know what I mean by doom scrolling? That reading the news, reading the news, reading the commentaries on the news, reading all the stuff that's thrown there to sell papers. Not that some of it is not true, but it's very isolated in what it's pointing at to get your attention. So what can we do to open completely to everything that's occurring? And one of the ways appears to be, if I heard Ken MacLeod right, not allowing ourselves to narrow our focus. Well, not allowing, we're going to do it sometimes probably, but not falling completely down the hole and forgetting that there are everywhere beautiful moments between beings. Jane Goodall just passed. What an incredible life she had. There were actually, I think, 3 women who came into a field that was utterly dominated by men, and they each in their own way lived a very full life of service where they chose. And that service brought them great joy, and I'm sure at times quite a great deal of sadness. Diane Fossey with gorillas, Jane Goodall with chimpanzees, and I'm so sorry, I cannot remember her name, with, I believe, orangutans. And that's how they lived their life, doing the next thing in that moment, not projecting into the future to the point of being so afraid they couldn't act. Those are models for all of us, and they're present, not so much anymore, but they're people living their lives that way everywhere. So what happens when we just despair and say it's all awful? I can't handle all this suffering. I think this is what Ken MacLeod was pointing at. We become part of the suffering. And maybe that's not useful. So what do we have to offer? we can practice Chenrezig together, calling it whatever we want to call it. We can become aware by allowing our awareness to open, our attention to open, of all the incredible things that go on in our world, in spite of great obstacles. We can perhaps offer a smile to somebody, or a moment of, sometimes those are the most intimate in my life, where I just, for some reason, catch eyes with a stranger. And there's a moment of, lack of another word, intimacy between us. And nothing's grasped and nothing's pushed away. When I am overwhelmed with the stories of suffering, I'm not open to those moments. How do we choose to live? I could sit here and go through, as my friend Losong Samton did one day in a teaching. He went through and just practically stripped everything away by going through the kinds of suffering that we have in our world, till most of the people in the room had tears running down their face. And I went to him afterward and said, "How do you hold all that?" And he looked right at me and he said, "How do you not?" And if you've met him, he's one of the most joyous people I've ever known. Even when he lost a very dear friend, he had a cry. He experienced what he was experiencing, but somehow doesn't hold on to it and make it be every moment. So what is this moment for us? Does it help? This is my question, then we'll just practice. Does it help to ramp up outrage, anger, despair, depression, by looking at everything negative in the world until you're paralyzed? We're all paralyzed and distraught and go, well, I don't know what to do. And this isn't artificial. One can, and I had a chance to talk with somebody this morning. One of her friends was murdered. And it affected her whole community. And people are angry, really angry. And this person has the presence to recognize the suffering of the family of the man that was arrested for the murder. Someone who's done a lot of not very nice things in his life and somehow escaped any accountability for it. And with that open-heartedness, it does not take away or say, well, you shouldn't feel your anger. It's okay to feel the anger. It's an emotion that arises that if we don't grab it to make ourselves feel better, will in its own time, in its own way, release itself. It's energy when we might be falling into despair. Anger sometimes sucks us into its energy so that we still feel alive, so that we have something that we can hold on to. Being fully present in this moment is not always an easy practice. It's usually not easy because we are grabbing and holding something from our past, which is not happening in this moment. Or we have that part of us that is prone to collapse. And the anger keeps us from doing that. So it's not bad. None of this is bad. What if we come back to our experience of this moment, which is actually the only thing we have, and what Ken MacLeod keeps coming back and teaching. Everybody perceives the world in a slightly different way. I remember my son he had an offer of a new computer or a trip to anywhere he wanted to go in the world. If you knew my son at all, the idea of it being a choice would be silly. He chose to go do some research thing with Earthwatch. It's a nonprofit in Madagascar. And I said, really? Madagascar, eh? And his perception was Madagascar at that time, maybe now still, has the highest level of poverty of anywhere in the world. And he thought he would just go. The surprising thing was he'd be sitting alongside of the road, just sitting there for a moment, as is his nature, and somebody would walk by, eating their lunch, and they'd look at him and they'd say hi, and they'd offer him half their sandwich. He's like, what? It was a time of absolute change in his perception. Yes, we could from here all have the perception that people were hungry and miserable and poor things. And this is awful. This is suffering. And what he found was one of the most connected cultures he'd ever been in, where people responded to each other, reached out when they had a little more than somebody else, they shared it. It was a real eye-opener for him. So whatever our projections are may not be true or accurate. So what we have is our experience. If I have the experience of, well, it's funny. I think if we open our heart, if we allow ourselves to open a little more, there's so many things that arise every day that we can respond to. And that's how I've noticed, at least for myself, when I'm spinning in the doom and gloom, and there is suffering in the world, for heaven's sakes. It's ridiculous to deny that. I mean, we find all kinds of ways. We have a president that blames people that are suffering as though it's their fault. Um, there are all kinds of ways to avoid it. But again, it's that aliveness, full aliveness. Yes, there is suffering. Yes, there is joy. I think it was the Dalai Lama that said, when he came west, he said, I'm so surprised you have in this country, this is several years ago when he came for the first time, You have so much. You have more than any other country I've ever been in. And you are the most unhappy people I've ever met. What's that about? Who do you want to be? What experience are you having? And not in a selfish way. Knowing that we can't actually share anybody else's experience. We can talk about our experience. I like the example. If I had a chocolate chip cookie here, I love chocolate chip cookies, and I took a bite, and you all went, well, what does it taste like? I could describe what it tastes like to me, but you would not experience the chocolate chip cookie with your taste buds, with your experience. There is no way to describe an experience. We try because we want to share with each other. We want to find ways to feel connected and closer. Or we've gotten so discouraged that we've just cut all of that off and we don't want to be close to anybody. Hurts too much. So what can we do? This experience of this moment. We're in a safe place in our group. We're with like-minded people that have some interest in open-heartedness, in unconditional love, perhaps, in being of service to others. Read something recently, maybe we can rest with it, about love, about how we label things and people. And then we have all sorts of rules about how we're supposed to act. If you're a mother, you're supposed to act this way. If you're a father, you're supposed to act this way. If you're a sister or brother, you're supposed to act this way. And pretty soon we're in relationships of obligation. And something dies. And we don't get to enjoy each other freshly. In this moment, how are we experiencing each other in this moment? And the kind of love that's described in this book, it just boggles my mind. I have not had that capacity in my lifetime. It's actually why I started this path when I met people that seemed to be talking about this. How do you love someone just as they are? Doesn't mean you have to spend your life with them. It doesn't mean you have to like them particularly. You may find that you're drawn to somebody, and as you look, you find out, I don't think they were who I saw, or maybe how they presented themselves. I don't know. I met most people and projected what I wanted to see onto them. It didn't always go well. Very seldom can anybody live up to what we project onto them. So how do we love people as they are? I fail at this constantly. I explain to myself why they're not lovable when I'm hurt. I do all kinds of things because there's something that seems to be lacking within me that I want somebody else to help fulfill. I've grown. Hopefully, I'm a little more generous, a little more open. But that's why I'm on this path. I'm not going to be able to genuinely open my heart to somebody that physically hurts somebody I'm close to. Not genuinely, but I can have the aspiration to be able to feel their suffering too, that would cause them to do such things. There's no point in faking this. I'm a good Buddhist. I love everybody. Well, no, I don't. I try, but I don't. In general, when I'm not in somebody's face, oh, I love you all. This is a wonderful setting for love. I love this group. I love that we can feel that open-heartedness together. But we also don't have to go home and together and plan our day and decide what we're going to do and all the things that rub against each other in relationships of any kind. How do we feel a part of? Without getting taken in, sucked in to one aspect of life? How do we taste it all? Joseph Campbell, who was studied mythology all around in old and new cultures, said at one time, if you can't appreciate death, you can't truly be alive. Take that for what it's worth to you. What does he mean by that? So what would we practice today? How about we try this? We're all in different places, different times of the day. But if we take about 3 minutes, maybe 5, I'll even put the timer on. And we experience, to the best of our ability, everything around us. We've done this in a couple other groups. Open our vision to everything around us, everything, without having to name it. If you name it, it's okay. You don't lose. It's not a game. But without having to name it, just let your eyes rest on everything around you. And then do the same with your hearing. Hear everything around you. No judgment, no shutting out. Or if it pops up, that's just part of what you're experiencing too. If you have smell or taste, terrific. Notice that too, all the senses. Then notice your body. We could do these one at a time, but I'll put them all together so we can each have our own 5 minutes together. Notice all the sensations in your body. What is your body touching? What's holding you up? Do you have any aches and pains? Not focusing on them, just noticing. About emotionally. Feel around without grabbing any particular thing. Notice what you're feeling emotionally. every one of your senses open to everything in this moment. And we'll check back in 5 minutes. Let me set the timer. I lose track of time. Okay, any questions about what we're going to do? All right. Everything. Does anybody want more time? Okay. Hope in some way everybody had a chance to notice how full every moment is when we're not describing it to ourselves. So many sounds arise. Without the need to say, oh, that's a nice one. I like that sound. I don't like that sound. Just sound. And maybe we notice the silence where the sound arises. Maybe we noticed things around us with our vision that I suppose we kind of knew were there, but we hardly ever notice. And the richness of what we surround ourselves with. If you happen to be outside or can see outside, when we're fully present here, which is hard to do because our describer wants to describe everything to us, which puts a nice little shield between us and everything else, we could share with the nature around us and be totally absorbed in the richness of that. One leaf. The more I describe, the more I limit. But on some level in my heart, that's what I know this being has to offer. Not to do anything, not to fix anything, just to be present. Not easy. There's sometimes I can't be present. I can recognize that as my need and not judge it. The instinct to protect myself. I don't want to feel hurt. There's no need to deny anything, any feeling that arises, any sensation that arises. There may seem to be a need to figure out what it is, but is there? In this moment, does it matter? Or can you just respond and respond, not react to everything around, including yourself, what we perceive as ourselves? If saying mantra helps remind us of what I'm not very skillfully trying to point at, by all means, say mantra. If doing a visualization of a yidam helps remind us, for by all means, find a sadhana. If taking a moment and opening to all the sensations of our six senses helps to remind us that we have nothing but this moment. This is our experience of this moment without trying to alter it. Somebody once said our suffering is because we're always just a little bit, at least, sometimes a lot, dissatisfied. And we want to make things be more the way we want them. My example, although I can't know exactly what their experience was, my inspiration, if you will, comes from this Tibetan line from the beings like Garchen Rinpoche. He's alive right now, who was taken and tortured. And somehow he knows that suffering's going on everywhere. He hasn't closed it all out. He's experienced it himself. And he has natural, not forced, and simple, not complex, open-heartedness for all beings. How the heck does he do that when he's seen the worst of the worst and been in conditions that I don't know what I would do with? We can't fake this any more than we can fake our happiness or fake our love. As far as I know, all I can do is learn to experience, be present in this moment. Those words sound so strange. And that method of being aware of all my senses, sensations, feelings, thoughts can arise. When it's that openness that we all can have for a moment, and before our describer panics and tries to get us to hold on to something, thoughts arise. We don't have to grab them. Does anybody have a sensation of, oh, I think I'm going to be a little bored if I do this? I think I'm bored. That's just that part of us that wants to control everything. It's a strong instinct. What happens when there's nothing going on? Oh, we can notice that there's everything going on. We're never alone. That doesn't mean we deny feeling lonely sometimes. Sometimes we think we want to be happy, don't we? I'll just talk about me. I think I want to be happy. Well, if I did this, I might be happier. I'd feel a little happier. And sometimes I notice that I am very self-destructive. I wouldn't allow it if it was right in front of me, because it is. Not happy like woo-hoo. We're going to have a whole range of emotions. Nothing wrong. Nothing to fix. And then, like Tara, perhaps we can relax and stop comparing ourselves to everybody else. Stop trying to figure out what we're supposed to do. Stop trying to fix things we don't like. Stop trying to manipulate the world, even if it's just our tiny little part of it. And we can be like Tara for a moment. Her foot somewhat extended to be able to rise quickly when there's a need. Her head slightly tilted so that she can hear better, be present to listening, and then respond. Most of us, at least myself, have been run by fear all my life, and I didn't know it. And reacting to fear, fears that aren't even present, just fear. Maybe I can just notice it without trying to change anything. When have we felt the most open? In this moment? Everything, every teaching I've ever gotten, everything that's ever been pointed to, points to presence in this moment. And a lot of the time, I'm too afraid to even use the methods I know to allow me to drop into that. What if I lose control? What if I don't know what to do? What if something needs me to fix it? What if, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if? Habits, patterns, they're not bad. You're all surviving. You all got to this point. Now, the method for allowing them to release when they're ready is too simple for most of us. No, give me something to do. How about the 600,000, whatever it is, the 100,000 six directions? How about a nundro? That'll keep us busy. And that's great. Do a nundro. Nothing other than right here, right now. You're angry, be angry. Doesn't mean you have to yell at everybody. It's your anger. I think that's all I have for today. I appreciate so much the opportunity to sit with you all. I appreciate that anybody, with all the ways we can distract ourselves and find distraction in the universe, I appreciate that anybody takes the time to try to rest inside or outside. I don't know what the words are. I appreciate that we get to do it together. and I'm grateful. And hungry, evidently. You probably didn't hear that. I appreciate humor. I appreciate, even if I don't have it, unconditional love. I get glimpses. May we all keep walking together, however that may go. May all beings have such opportunities. May we all be free. Till next time, thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.